Hi guys, it's Brandon with Your Right Website here with another video. This is a continuation of our series on creating a WordPress mega menu plugin. In our last video, we started building our WordPress plugin and we added our boilerplate code and we started working on an admin menu, which you can see up on the screen. Since our last video, I went in and I actually did a little bit of refactoring on the code for this project. What I have done is I have updated the code so that we are no longer using static methods in our class because I realized it was starting to create some confusion. So I went ahead and made all the methods traditional instead of static. So it's going to be easier to work with the code. And I also did some cleanup of the code and added some comments so that you guys can see what's going on with each of the areas that we are working on. And I've also added a new function here, which is this hide admin notices. And what this is going to do is on our plugin page, we don't want to show a bunch of annoying admin notices at the top every time we load our plugin. So I've gone ahead and refactored that code. And in today's video, we are going to start building the interface for the menu style selection. So that's going to be today's video. Stick around and we're going to get into that. And I'm going to try making these videos a little bit shorter, just focused on one specific piece of the project at a time. Tell me if you like this format, if you don't like it, and how you're liking this series. So let's get started. So jumping back into our code. If you may recall from our last video, we had started by building just a admin menu and a little bit of HTML that we're loading on the page, which you can see here. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about is the different ways that we can actually load that HTML on the page. You can see here that we just have an echo statement and we're loading the HTML. And that's one perfectly valid way to load your HTML. Another way you could do it is you could actually break out of PHP and you could do something like this. You could go and actually stop the PHP interpreting and you could just write your HTML like that. And this is something you're going to see a lot in WordPress plugin development as well. People just deciding to break out of PHP and put the HTML in there. And if we reload our page, you'll see that we have our HTML load, and that is perfectly valid too. But the thing is, I don't like that approach. I think that this approach is messy, and you're going to have a file with a whole bunch of breaking in and out of PHP. And I also don't like the echo approach here because that is going to cause problems if you start to have a lot of HTML. For one little statement there, I think it's fine. But if you wanted to have something like a whole form, like we are going to need for this interface here, having all of that HTML inside of a single echo statement or a single variable is going to start to get real messy real quick, and then you've just got PHP mixed in with HTML. So what I like to do in a case like this is I like to actually create a separate directory that's going to contain our HTML files. And that leaves us free to have our class do the majority of the logic, and then our HTML files to do the majority of the output display. So what we're going to do that is we're going to go into our multi-menu plugin, and I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Views. And those of you who follow along with my Sage videos may recognize that folder name. In Sage themes, that Views folder is traditionally blade files. In this case, because not everyone watching this is going to be using Sage, we're just going to use PHP files, but I'm just going to call it Views because that makes sense and that's what I'm familiar with. So we're going to go ahead and create a new view, and we're going to call this view admin menu style selection .php. And then we have our blank file here, and I'm going to just go ahead and put our header back in here. And put that here. And then what we're going to do in our function here is we are just going to do a require once. Now inside of our require once, we want to get the path of the current plugin. So you can do that with plugin dir path, and then just pass it the current file. And then we want to get our view file. So /views/admin menu style selection.php. And if we do that and go back to our admin interface and we try to load it again, we get our header here. So now we are loading our HTML, and we are keeping all of our HTML separate from our PHP code, which is going to make things nice and clean. So now what we want to do is we want to just set up some HTML to make our interface look a little bit pretty. And we're going to be adding some CSS and things like that, but at the core, what we need is we need an interface that shows all of the menus on the site, as well as an option to set the menu style that we want to apply to that specific menu. So going into our admin menu here, what we're going to do is I'm just going to wrap this in a div that we are going to call multi-menu admin, and then we're just going to call this menu style selection. And then I like to keep things separate, so I'm going to do div class equals header intro. And this is going to be an area where we just have our header and our intro. And then we just want some text to let the user know what the purpose of this screen is. So use this interface to select a menu style for each of the menus on your site. And then we want to have a container for the menus, menu listing. And then what we're going to want in here is we're going to want to loop through each of the menus, and we're going to have a form, so we can just add our form class. Or our form tag, and we're just going to fill it in action blank method post. We're going to come back and add the dynamic logic to actually make that form do something in a bit, but we're just going to make our form, and then we're going to make our submit button container. Now we have the very basics of our admin interface. So if we load this up, you'll see that we now have just a button for our form, and we have some text here for this. I think what we want to do for this is maybe give it a little bit of styling. So I'm going to go into the multi-menu admin here, and we have the generic CSS file for admin global. So let's go ahead and just make a couple style rules to kind of make things look a little bit better. We're going to go in here, and we're just going to add background color of white, and then padding 30 pixels, and then we'll say paragraphs have to be font size. We'll just do 1 rem, which is equal to 16 pixels. Line height 1.5 rem, and then we'll go ahead and say anywhere that we have a header intro area, we will go ahead and margin bottom 30 pixels, and then if we have a paragraph in there, we'll say font size rem, or 1.125 rem, which is approximately 18 pixels. Line height 1.65 rem. And this should give us a menu that looks a little bit prettier. If we open our inspector so we get a uncached version, we should now have a page that looks a little bit prettier. And as you can see, it looks like we do have a little bit of the spacing is off, and I think that's because of the default WordPress alignment. So what we can do for that is we can just move our area over. It looks like 30 pixels. I think what we're going to do, actually, we're going to just give it a margin of 30. Actually, it looks more like 20 pixels. Margin left of 0. And let's just go ahead and save that. And if we reload, there we go. That looks better. So we've got a nice white box. Let's go ahead and actually define some styles for our headers and our paragraphs. Our headers, do we have any? Let's just add some styles while we're in here. So H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, margin top 0, margin bottom 1 rem, and then our paragraph will do the same thing. Margin top 0, margin bottom 1 rem. Actually, should probably be a little higher for header, 1.5 rem. And let's see if that makes things look a little better. And I think now we've got our interface. Maybe let's just make this 1 rem. See how that looks. There. I think that's looking a lot better. So now we've got some basic CSS styles for our admin interface. So now we're going to move on to actually trying to display all of the menus that are on the site in some sort of form. So now that we've got some basic styling for our admin interface, we want to actually see if we can get all of the menus that are registered with WordPress. And how can we do that? Well, looking at some documentation online, it looks like there's a function called wp-get-nav-menus that's going to return all of our navigation menu objects. So let's try using that and see if it gets us what we need. Menus equals wp-get-nav-menus, and then takes parameters. I don't really see. I don't think we need any parameters for this. So let's try that and let's see what we get. And we're just going to do a dump and die. Because we are on a Sage theme, dump and die will work. If you're not using Sage, you can probably just use die to output the content of menus. Actually, let's just try that. I think it might throw an error because it's an object. Yeah, we are getting an error. I can tell by the little icon up here that there's an error being thrown. We are just going to do a dump and die. Because we're on Sage, using a Sage theme that I like to use, has this little helper function built in. So we'll just do dd menus, and we should get a whole array of menus back, and we do. So this is exactly what we need, because we need to get all of the menus and then build a form interface around them to allow the user to select a style. So this is returning exactly what we need. So now that we get these menus, we can actually get rid of this dump and die, and we can go into our view file here that we've created, and we can just start looping through these menus. So we're going to make a new div, form, we'll call this menus listing, menus item I'm bad at naming things. We're going to call this menus listing each. And then we'll just call this, or we'll do a for each. So here's where we can break out into PHP. And we should probably check if is array menus and count menus greater than 0, because there might be a case where there's no menus on the site if it's a new site. So we want to make sure that we can actually loop through these items. And then we'll do for each menus as menu. And then what we will do is we can actually just, what we want to do is probably break back out of PHP because we want to do HTML for each. So each one's going to get its own menu. And then what we'll do is we'll do a select field and then name equals. I think the way we'll want to do this, I'll have to think about how I want to do this. Maybe we'll want to do where the name is the term ID of the menu. So select name equals PHP echo menu, menu term ID, and then we can close that, and then we should have an option select menu style. This will just be our default option, and then we will want values for each of the different types of menus that we're going to have. So the first value is what did we say we're doing? We're doing a full screen menu. We'll call it full screen menu. Full screen menu. Mega menu. And then our slide out menu. And now we've got our select, and let's add a label for, and we'll give it an ID equal, IDs can't just be a number, and I think the name can't be a number either, so we'll just do menu underscore, call this ID menu dash, whatever the term ID is. And then label for, the label is for the ID, so that's menu dash, whatever that is, label. And then we will call this, we want to get the name of the menu, so this is under the menu, that is the name. PHP echo menu name, and then menu style. And actually we need a question mark here because that's actually PHP. So if we reload our page, now we've got drop downs for each of the different menus that give us a choice of the menu style we want to select. And let's just clean this up real quick. I think the last thing we're going to do for this video is clean up this CSS. I'm going to add a class of form group as well here. So for each form group, we are going to have some rules. So a label is font size 1 rem, line height 1.25 or 1.5 rem, font weight bold, margin bottom 2 pixels, and display block. And I think if we clean that up, we're going to get a menu that looks a lot better. I think what we'll do, I think that's too big for the font size though, 0.875 rem, and line height 1.25 rem, and then we will just do margin, we'll do margin bottom of 15 pixels for each of the form groups. And if we save this, we should get a form that looks a little bit better. Maybe we need to add margin top 0 on the labels. Let's see. No, that's not it. Maybe we're going to go ahead and just do the margin bottom of 10 pixels on the form groups. I want to get them a little closer together. I think that's good for now. We might come back and play with this a little bit more as far as the styling. But I think for this video, I think this is where we're going to end it. In this video, we went ahead and we did some CSS to build out our menu styles dropdown. We did some PHP to actually get each of the menus that we're using on the site. And I think next time we are going to tackle maybe refining this form a little bit, making it look a little bit prettier, and then actually starting on a handler to take the user's selection here and save it to the database. So this was another coding tutorial from Brandon at Your Right Website. If you want to see more of these videos, please give this a like, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to work with me one-on-one on developer questions, if you have any questions about WordPress plugin development, HTML, CSS, Get, anything like that, I'm going to put a link in the description to my website where I offer web developer mentorship. I'd love to work with you, and I have free consultations available. Until next time, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll be coming out with another video in the series pretty soon. So subscribe and like, and see you around for the next one. Bye.